Hey, what's up everyone? Watch this video here from Monday, November 16th, showing you the SPY after gapping up to all-time highs, about a week ago. Came back down and now is starting to curl back up. Looking pretty strong. Couple highlights from Friday. Just a few I put in my notes. Hold on. FPRX, just to explain. So it was on the gap play watch list just because it's been pretty strong and it was gapping up slightly. Let me zoom in a little bit just to kind of explain the setup. It's one of my favorite setups, actually. So you see the gap up a few days ago, right? And it ended up selling off. Had an offering somewhere in there and then gapped up and had this nice pop on. This would have been Thursday, right? So anyway, I put it back on watch for Friday. It gapped up a little bit and topped out at the whole number 23 or maybe 2301. Either way, you know we love whole number inflection points on recent high flyers with catalysts above and so on. So as it started to curl back up, I called this long in the chat room. My idea was if it got back through 23, and these are 5-minute candles. So doesn't seem like much, but here, let's zoom forward a little bit. Through 23, it ended up, about 10 or 15 minutes, went to 24.20. Really, really nice way to start the day. Yes, it ended up rolling over, but as we like to say in chat, we rent these. We're day traders, right? We scale out into strength and put the rest of our shares at a break-even stop once we start taking profits. So that was a nice little trade. A couple others that I can think of. JWS, Wayne called this one, and I'll show you the. Let's look at the reason first. So it had that. It was already on our overnight watch list, right? I put it in the video for Friday. Had this big pop, right, to new all-time highs. So then fast forward, it opened down here. Then let's look at 5-minute candles to explain the setup. Very simple trade. For 15 minutes, it had topped out at 1160 and was in a 20-cent opening range. Wayne just called this long through 1160 here. And look at that. Ended up going up, switch to there. Ended up going up to 12, 10-ish or something. Anyway, really, really nice. Easy trade for those that took it. KCAC, another afternoon call by Wayne. Half number inflection point. So it looked like this. So there's the early highs, or 5-minute candles. Topped out at 1750. And it's kind of I guess you could call this an intraday inverse head and shoulders forming, right? Anyway, the idea was back through that half number inflection point through the half, through 1750, which was also the earlier high of day. And when it broke 1750, all the way up through 1950. And actually, after hours, this went up over 21 probably because it had that strong close. So a really nice looking breakout there. And it goes back on watch, by the way, for Monday. So there's a few highlights from Friday. But anyway, let's go into the watch list for Monday. CBAT, CBAT. Big volume, almost 100 million shares and a big breakout. It's Chinese battery maker. They do make batteries, the best I can tell, for EVs, electric vehicles. But it's also worth noting that a lot of the EV China plays are so extended. They had a nasty reversal on Friday. I do want to watch those all week, though, for a bounce play. Think NIO, NIO, LI, XPEV. They're all super interesting. I'd like to see a couple days pullback, and then you'll certainly see them on watch if that happens by Wednesday for a bounce play. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. LYL is kind of a sleeper pick, but it had this big move, and I believe it's Chinese, big move from like $1 all the way to almost $5 within, I don't know, about a week's time back in October, and it didn't completely roll over. Next thing you know, it's curling back up. It's a sleeper pick because it still didn't even hit 1 million shares on Friday. But a strong close and certainly interesting, right? It's worth noting that back when it had that big run, it traded over 30 million shares some days. So the fact that it's sneaking up on low volume does make it interesting, but it also makes it a sleeper pick. SOL, solar stock, big breakout on Friday. So it's certainly worth watching for a follow through. And if it does, SUNW, SunW, is basically in the same space. Had a little extra volume on Friday, but ended up closing about where it opened. So if SOL has a continuation day and we can't catch a trade in that, I might look to SUNW to see if it's setting up. All right, speaking of EV plays, you can kind of picture a trend line here. Follow my mouse. And it's kind of up and hitting and trying to break through that trend line on volume. It's an EV play. Now, it's worth noting that it's already been up like 4 days in a row. So I don't love calling something long after it's been up 4 days in a row. So hopefully the EV space comes in for a few days. And then this one will be more interesting, but I am going to watch it on Monday. Already talked about KCAC. Certainly goes on watch for a follow-through day on Monday. AHT. The best I can tell, this the world is going to go back to living again play, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? And this big pop was on the vaccine announcement day. It's pulled back since to the 8-day, and now it's starting to curl back up. So with that in mind, I think it's really worth watching. All right, so that's AHT. And if that one does go, and maybe we miss an entry or a great sympathy play to that, which ran with it that same day, is this INN, which has kind of an interesting chart. It topped out here at 829, and now it's starting to curl back up. So let's just say AHT starts to rip on Monday, and this one hasn't yet. It's kind of interesting through that whole number 8, knowing we've got another catalyst just above, and it's a sympathy play to AHT. All right, NKLA. This one's kind of obscure, but they're the company that GM's looking at buying, I think, or investing in, or whatever, electronic vehicle play. And let me go to 15s to give you a better look. So this had a big move. Well, you can't really see it on the daily chart because, I'll go back real quick. Can't really see it on the daily chart because it had this massive move to almost 95. So once it starts trading in a normal range, this big move here kind of, smushes all this together, if you will, right? Because the chart makes room for this. So it doesn't really look like it made a big move recently, but switching back to 15-minute candles, you can see it went from like 18 to over 21 in one day, put in kind of a quiet inside day, and then had another nice rip on Friday. So this thing is holding up really well and showing some strength. There it is on 60s, maybe a rounding bottom for me. So certainly worth watching, especially if that space gets going again, right? It may need to come in for a couple days, meaning that whole space. GP, never heard of this before, and all of a sudden it gets this big volume on Friday, so I look up today to see what it is, and they make electric buses. I want to say in Canada, you know what? Bear with me. As I'm babbling, I'll try to look it up real quick. So here, GP, out of Canada, that's what I thought. 11.8 million in the float, and they call this, one headline says, this tiny electric bus maker is positioned to soar 40 times. That's a headline on November 13th. And I actually clicked on the link and looked up their company, and they literally do make battery operated buses. So certainly in the right space, and the chart looks decent because they had this big run back here to almost over 23, and it's come back down, and all of a sudden volume coming in. By the way, this is let me go to weekly candles. Yeah, so that's weekly, so really it's kind of just getting found as a way to look at it, and this is probably its biggest volume day ever. Topped out at the whole number 13, which is also worth noting. So this one, in the EV space, I'm going to start keeping this one on a chart. It's very interesting to me. APD is just on bounce watch again. You can't see it on this chart, but the 200-day is around 256, 257 bucks. I wouldn't mind a flush down to that area, and it's more interesting. But gapped up here, I think, on earnings, and it's really just been selling off ever since. This is overdue for a bounce. Those of you that know the way I trade, when I have something on watch for a bounce, what I'd like to see is a fairly narrow intraday range and an afternoon upside break out of that range. That's the ideal scenario for me. But if we get downside shape, say Monday morning, into that 200-day, I'll be looking for an intraday kind of bottoming play too. So there's a couple different ways I want to watch that one. And then lastly, I threw VJET, VJET on watch. It is not because of this volume spike. This is a low volume stock. You don't even see a 1 million share day going all the way back to January. The reason it's on watch is because in after hours they had news, and it closed out after hours at 11.85. So it looks like a thin stock and low volume stock, but potential gap play on Monday. We'll see what it does. I'm done babbling. We'll see y'all in chat in the morning.